YouTube longevity lifestyle designers. This is Gavin here, secretsoflongevity.com. I've got 3 stories for you today in the health news roundup. First one from just this past weekend, or it's been going on actually probably since midweek last week, but as things unfold, we're hearing the details and it doesn't look that pleasant to have to deal with this, but a family, 2 parents, they have 2 sons, one of them critically ill with a form of cancer. In England, in the UK, they decided to take their son out of hospital, as any loving parent that sees a better alternative would, and they went over to Spain to try a treatment that wasn't available in the UK, but was available in Spain. Now, this treatment isn't even that extreme. It's a new type of treatment, and it's not fully understood how effective it is yet, but as far as I could tell, it doesn't sound like it has as many side effects as you would have with conventional chemotherapy, which is quite interesting. It's a type of proton beam therapy. And they actually do it in the UK for problems with the eyes, I guess types of eye cancer, but it's not available yet for other types. And in the UK there's the NHS, which is a very overarching form of socialized medicine. The people in England believe they're very satisfied with it. But as we would know, if we looked into healthcare systems all around the world, socialized healthcare, a lot of people have perceptions of it being good from the outside, but the deeper they get into it, they tend to not enjoy it as much. That's another video for another day, however. In Spain, there's a little more freedom, and this family is doing their freedom and right as individuals to explore other options. And this made me think of the ongoing encroachment of overarching state power when it comes to your health. Now, it looks like just because of the publicity and the backlash from the public about this whole event, because it's completely illogical that you'd think that some agency or the state in general is supposed to intervene in cases where parents have the choice of how they raise their own children. There's the argument that that becomes abuse if it's an unfounded treatment, but that's not the definition of abuse. So personally, the only benefit I see of intervening with the way parents bring up a child is when there's abuse, and I think that can also happen in a society when there is no state. You know, you have all sorts of advocacy groups that can come in and do these things, so you can still protect the rights of children without a state. And then without the state, you don't get these gross overstepping of people's right to freedom of healthcare choices. And you see this in the US, for example. We've seen recent stories in the past where parents have been forced into having their children to have chemotherapy treatment. And in a society, in a medical system where you actually have to pay for it, that's even more deplorable when you consider the costs and when you consider parents might choose a very alternative route compared to conventional cancer treatments. So I'm not trying to get into the discussion of the benefits of different types of cancer treatments here. I just want to say that, you know, get the fuck out of the way, state. We're going to have our own choices for our own individual health, especially the individual health of the people we have under our care. So any sociopathic, bootlicking, supplicating losers can go fuck themselves if they want to try and push the ideology of taking responsibility of other people's children in that case. Part of freedom is actually allowing people to make bad choices, whether it's the choice to indulge in illicit substances, whether it's the choice to behave in a way that's sexually irresponsible. And through doing that, and in this case, this could actually be a very beneficial treatment, but if it was a very fringe treatment and it ended up being more harmful than good, and there was harm that came from it, that, well, it sounds very callous to say this, but that is actually how, as a society, as a group, everyone learns from bad choices people make, and they make better choices in the future. When you see someone who made a bad choice and ended up losing their job, people around them learn from that and they won't make that same mistake. But when you have institutions coming in to try and protect these people and stop them from making a mistake, or to protect them after they made the mistake, then people don't learn from their lessons, and then you get this blunted non-reaction to things that actually cause harm. So it's good when people screw up because they learn from their mistakes and other people around them learn from their mistakes. So you can find a link to all 3 stories below as I go through them. First one I just mentioned is our first one down there. And the next story is that the Ebola virus threat is actually increasing. Despite what anyone feels around this whole issue, people think it's distraction, some people are saying it's hype to create fear. I'm all for paying attention to the facts. It's kind of gone off the radar as more world events come up and different scandals and things happen. And the Ebola thing is still ongoing. And this is a pandemic that, which I thought was interesting in the article, or at least the linking article. I don't know if it was in the exact one I was reading, but the problem with these things is that they can continue on. If it's not seasonal like the flu, if it's not something that's really fast acting, it's something that lingers and is still contagious for a while. It's likely we're going to see this hanging around for up to 3 years. Even with the best containment, it could last longer if it's poorly contained and it keeps spreading, because once you get one area contained, if there's even just one person that gets out or that has it out somewhere else, it can easily spread and crop up. Conspiracy theories aside, what I've always lived by and what I advocate and what I think is quite wise is to prepare for the worst but expect the best. Now, that doesn't mean that you expect the best and do nothing about it. You still have to prepare for the worst. And that doesn't mean that you have to become an all-out prepper. But it could be wise to have some surgical masks on hand if you live in more temperate regions of North America. And for me, living where I currently live, it's obviously much less of a threat because it's a disease that thrives in hot, humid environments. So for me, I probably wouldn't do this until maybe it had hit the U.S. and was spreading in the U.S. if it were to do that. But those in the temperate regions of U.S., maybe even Mexico, just have some basic pandemic-type prepping gear on hand. And it's stuff that you can have in a box in your basement for decades. It'll last. Maybe even prepping a little bit of food. That doesn't last decades, but having up to a week's worth of storage on hand is great. Having a bug-out bag ready and on hand is a good thing. And I'm no expert on this, so I recommend just doing some searches and learning what those things are and how you can have a very basic level of preparedness should that be something that is necessary for you to do one day. And a lot of this stuff is actually good to have on hand because it's a lot more than just a flu pandemic. It could be an economic collapse, it could be earthquake or other type of weather catastrophe. So, this stuff is not that expensive to prepare for, and yet it can save your life down the road in a crisis situation. Link number 3 below is an interesting news story. I've seen it repeated a few places. And at first I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. It's about action movies causing people to become hungrier and snack more than other types of movies. And I'm like, that kind of makes sense. If you have adrenaline and cortisol spiking in your blood, you need that hit of sugar, usually. Very simple carbohydrates or sugary candy to bring down that stress hormone quickly is what usually people go for when they're stressed. So a high stress movie is obviously going to create that effect. But then I actually read how the study was done, and there's been other studies done in the past too, and none of them seem that well done. They'll do a high stress movie. In this case it was The Island by Michael Bay. Big explosions, fast camera cuts and things like that. Then the other group was The Island but on mute. So it was the exact same movie, and they basically had various foods available for people watching it to consume. And then the other example was people just watching Charlie Rose, which is a talk show. And to me, you can't make the conclusion that action movies cause people to eat twice as much food as other types of movies when you only have a muted version of the action movie and a talk show as your other possibilities. You have to mix in the drama, the horror, the comedy, etc. And I think it's probably likely that action might be the top one if you were to have every type of movie put on for a wide range of audience members and seeing how it affects their snacking habits. But there's literally been no other types shown. Perhaps drama would be one that makes people consume the most ice cream, chocolate, Haagen-Dazs or something. Maybe horror makes people eat more popcorn, and they need that salt to bring down the stress hormones that come up in fear. Whereas in the drama, it's more of a stress hormone that might require that sugar and fat. So I'm just throwing out some theories of my own. It could be very negligible. It could be there's nothing there because they didn't look at other movies. They just looked at action movies. And it kind of blows my mind that the media would even cover this, let alone the scientists would come up with such a poorly thought out study. Anyways, let me know what you think about these 3 stories in the comments below. Like, favorite, and share the video if you feel so inclined. And with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.